Welcome to the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Jarvis S. Scott from What's Happening Birmingham. Happy Monday, everybody. Today is February, is it the 8th? No, the 9th. February the 9th. Hope everybody's doing good. I wanted to bring on somebody very special tonight. He is a returning guest on the podcast. Well, I initially said, as you all know, this face is not very familiar face. If you live in Birmingham, the last couple of years, you've seen this man on our TV screen a lot because there was a lot of homicides going on back in 2024. For some who don't know, some who do know, and some of y'all who's nosy, this is Attorney Truman Fitzgerald, former Birmingham Police Department officer. Attorney Fitzgerald, how you doing this evening?
I am well, Jarvis. What's going on with you? As always, I'm so appreciative of you bringing me on the show. I've always loved you and been thankful for you for that.
And I always appreciate, the work you do throughout the years to kind of keep Birmingham safe, and how you was very open and transparent with the public, no matter what was going on.
Thank you, Jarvis.
Throughout the years. So the number one question I think everybody wants to know, and I guess it's the question of the moment when it comes to you, when they see you, is why did you leave Birmingham Police Department?
Why did I leave the Birmingham Police Department? Mm-hmm. Here's why I left, Jarvis. Mm-hmm. For the past 14 years, specifically the last 5 years, I have put blood, sweat, and tears into the Birmingham Police Department and doing everything I could to build that organization up as a team, sacrificing time, my mental health, seeing just the most atrocious things that could possibly take place in Birmingham. And I was in the trenches, and it became apparent when this new administration took over, specifically Chief Pickett, that the executive leadership wanted everything to be about themselves, which I'm perfectly fine with that. It's not my organization. It's somebody else that I work for. But when you are willing to stab people in the back and willing to push people who have been nothing but loyal to you and nothing but loyal to the Birmingham Police Department to make yourselves look good, I'm not for that. I'm not for that. And God has blessed me with the ability to have something of my own. And so I'm looking at it like I'm sacrificing my other dream. I'm sacrificing my other love because I care about the team. And y'all don't care about the team. Y'all care about yourselves. So with that being said, I made a decision that I'm not the employee that I used to be. And it's not fair for you to have somebody who is not giving their all at this, because the way I like to look at it is like a marriage. Mm-hmm. In a marriage, sometimes you have an irretrievable breakdown where you can never get over something. I can never get over the way I was stabbed in the back. And I made that realization that I'm never going to get over that. And so why am I sticking around not being the employee that the Birmingham Police Department deserves when I can just move on? And I moved on. And there's no bad blood. I love everybody at the Birmingham Police Department. I wish them the best. I think they're doing an amazing job. However, it was time for me to go, and I left. And I'm putting 100% into betting on my law practice and my teammate, Terrell McCants. That's who my loyalty is with right now.
Well, I mean, I'd be remiss not to ask, how were you stabbed in the back?
Well, when you make it apparent that you're trying to push to the side the work that women and men have put in to the department because you feel as though they're your competition, that's a problem to me. That's a problem to me because I'm family. I'm your teammate. I don't want the spotlight that you want. I don't want to be in the limelight. I don't want to be the chief. I don't want to be even a deputy chief. I want to do what I love, which is to be a patrol officer and to be a public information officer. And when I started noticing that my platforms were being taken away from me, it was apparent. And I turned the cheek as much as I could. And after a while, it was just like, you can't run game on me. I already know what you're trying to do. And so the biggest lesson that I learned is that you can't expect collaboration out of folks that view you as competition.
So I want to go back to 2024, which, according on Stats and Record, was the deadliest year that Birmingham had homicides. Now that you're no longer with the Birmingham police, what was going on during that time? Like, tell me because I've talked to a lot of officers and they was like, the morale was really like down, but it wasn't something, you had where they'll tell, officers would tell you, privately, or if you had a relationship with them, but publicly there's fear of, maybe retribution from the administration, and then the administration was telling something different, So kind of tell me about that, what was going on during that time.
For one, I think you had just some monsters on the street. And it's not to put all the blame on a selective group, but you just had monsters on the street. You had a group of criminals that were responsible for over 30+% of the homicides. And once they were removed from the streets, you could see the change. Also, I don't think that the Birmingham Police Department was addressing the community issues the way that they should have been. And one of the biggest reasons why you have seen the results that you have is because Chief Michael Pickett has been a mastermind with going after the individual and community beefs before they escalate out of hand. And I think that's, he deserves so much credit for all the work that he's put in to decreasing the homicides in Birmingham. And I think that Chief Pickett is a major cause for crime being decreased in Birmingham, and just how innovative he is and the way that he approaches addressing crime. And also he puts pressure on the right people. And you've seen the results of that. And Birmingham's a lot safer because of him and because of his efforts. My only issue with the Birmingham Police Department is I didn't feel like we were family anymore. I felt like we were enemies when we're sisters and brothers. We're a family. We should be working together. You don't have to stab someone in the back who's willing to go to war with you. But it's amazing what people will do when they view you as competition or view you as a threat. And I saw that firsthand with my own eyes.
So were you all really, I guess, back in 2024, were you all really down that many officers that was being, like some people were saying that Birmingham was down like 400 officers. Were you all really down that many officers then? We
were in a crisis as far as officers goes. We had to go to 12-hour shifts because of the crisis that we had. And another credit to Chief Michael Pickett is his recruiting efforts. Look at what he's done with bringing in, the large classes and putting police officers on the streets. And I think that Birmingham is going to benefit greatly from that. My only fear is that you can't sacrifice quality for quantity. You can't sacrifice quality for quantity. So my challenge to all of the newer officers that have been hired is there is a stereotype and stigma on you. For the young officers listening, for the young officers, family members or friends, or the new hires, family members and friends, let them know that there's a lot of pressure on them, because with those large classes, there's the fear that the Birmingham Police Department may have sacrificed quality for quantity. And that's my fear. And that's why, I just hope and pray that those individuals that got that opportunity from the Birmingham Police Department to be Birmingham police officers, I hope they treat the community the way they deserve. And I don't mean this as a threat, but I mean this as a promise, because right now, if they don't take care of the community, you're going to have to worry about attorneys like me and my law partner that practice civil rights that are waiting for the opportunity where the Birmingham Police Department mistreats one of our community members, sitting back waiting for it. And I pray that never happens.
So you think there would be more officer involved altercations coming up? Possibly?
I don't think there's going to be more officer involved altercations. I just worry that many people have joined the law enforcement profession for the wrong reasons. And that's across the board. That's not just the Birmingham Police Department. That's with this newer generation of law enforcement hires. Many of them have sought out the career of law enforcement because they understand the stability and the profitability that goes into being a law enforcement officer.
Okay. So I'm not trying to go back in time so much. I mean, I'm bringing up to today. Take me back. Where were you that night when the South Side shooting occurred? Were you were you working that night?
I was at home with my family, and I can remember that night like it was yesterday. The dispatcher called me. She said that we have a mass shooting at a club on the South Side. At that point, I immediately looked at the scene electronically, and it was horrific. You know, I saw when I first logged in to the system that I had, there were victims on the sidewalk that clearly were deceased. And I got up and I went to the South Side, and I just remember, you know, how horrible it was. It makes me tremble now thinking about that. And I just remember telling myself that, you know, Birmingham needs a voice right now, and somebody has to be that voice for them. And I think that the Hush shooting is one of the causes of my hurt and pain when it comes to the Birmingham Police Department, because I look back to that time period and I look back that, you know, here we were handling that situation as a family, and we overcame such a horrific incident as a team. And you fast forward within a year, I felt like the Birmingham Police Department forgot about the women and men who were there during the toughest times, and the women and men who were there in the trenches when it was rough. And because of that, that goes into that irretrievable breakdown that I had that I just couldn't get over. I look back at all those scenes that, you know, I helped handle, and I remember all those, you know, Birmingham residents that I saw laying on the pavement that never were going to see the light of day anymore. And I look back at all that, you know, bodies being burnt up in cars, folks with their heads chopped off. I've seen it all as a Birmingham Police Department. And when I said originally, like, I felt kind of entitled, it wasn't without reason. And I don't think I was entitled, but I looked at it like, dang, y'all are going to do me like this after everything I've sacrificed for y'all and everything I put into being a Birmingham police officer. I deleted my social media when I was a public information officer. That's how pro Birmingham, and that's how much about the team I was. I wasn't even on social media when I was a public information officer, because it wasn't about me. It was about the team. So if you look at somebody who's that pro team and that pro Birmingham Police Department, when I'm exposed to individuals that are trying to make our organization about themselves, I can't stand for that. And I'm not going to stand for that. And when people ask me, why are you willing to give up 15 years and a pension to leave? That's one of the reasons why. And quite frankly, God has blessed me with a law practice in practice areas within the law office where I don't factor in money like I would as a police officer. There's certain opportunities that present themselves when you care about your clients, when you love your clients and you love law and you practice the areas of law that I practice. There's certain opportunities that present themselves that would make up for a police pension, that will make up for having to sacrifice 5 years for an organization that you don't feel has your back when the going gets tough. And that's why I walked away.
So hold on. You had 5 more years. Make sure I know this too. You have to serve 20 to get the pension, right?
You have to serve 20 and you get 50% of the last 3 years, the total of that. You get 50% of that if you leave at 20. When you get to 30 years, you get 75%.
Okay.
And I was 22 when I first started, and I could have been 42 when I retired.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Did you feel like you had, during all this time back in 2024, 2025, did you feel like you had got support from the administration, from the mayor's office?
Of course, of course.
Okay.
Mayor Wolfen has been amazing, and he's always been, and that's everybody at the Birmingham Police Department is family. They're still my sisters and brothers, and with family members, you have disputes and you have disagreements. So there's no love lost. I still love them. I still support them, and I felt that the mayor always had my back, and I consider him a big brother.
So okay, let's fast forward to now. No, before I fast forward, let me go back for a minute. So when you was starting your law practice, did you ever feel, because I know, like you told me, you was like, well, Jarvis, I can always practice cases that's outside of Birmingham, which, everybody knows Birmingham ain't just Jefferson County, it's the largest city. There's other municipalities and other cities, like 30 other cities in Jefferson County that, was plenty of work always to some. But did you always feel like it was limiting you in some way because of your current position being a police officer?
Jarvis, that is such a great question. And in fact, the answer to that question is also one of the reasons why I left. And it goes into that sacrifice piece I was telling you about. When I first started practicing, if you knew the amount of calls that I got as an attorney that I had to turn away because they were either based out of Birmingham or involved the Birmingham Police Department, you wouldn't believe it. And so what I told myself, and one of the factors into, okay, are you really going to walk away from this, is the amount of cases that I'm turning away just because they happen in Birmingham, whether it be an arrest, whether it be a car wreck, whether it be a slip and fall, whether it be an employment issue, whether it be a civil rights issue. I was turning all those cases away. So you have one of the most active cities, if not the most active city in Alabama, and I can't take any case. That's what I'm sacrificing. And so I looked at that as like, I'm sacrificing all this to be a member of a team that doesn't even view me as a teammate, that views me as an enemy or competition. And at that point, I said, look, I'm going to take my chances on law. I love law. I love the practice of law. You can have a career in law that lasts the rest of your life as long as your mind is healthy. There's attorneys that are in their 80s and 90s that practice law. And I also consider that is sooner or later, I would have had to walk away from the Birmingham Police Department anyway. Why not go ahead and step away now while my law enforcement career is still fresh on my mind? Because a lot of people didn't know this about me. I never stopped working patrol. Throughout the entire career of mine, I never stopped working patrol. And so I still have those real life experiences as a police officer working the streets of Birmingham that I'm able to apply to my law practice. And I think that's what makes me so versatile as an attorney is I just wasn't a police officer on paper. I was actually answering calls. I've reported homicides as a public information officer that I investigated and completed the patrol report as a patrol officer. Like, that's how dedicated to policing I was. Here was somebody that was the patrol officer on the homicide scene, spoke to the media. That's what I was pouring into the Birmingham Police Department. And so that's where my hurt and my anger and my emotions come from with the Birmingham Police Department is I gave you everything that I had to be the best absolute Birmingham police officer I could. I am a Birmingham born kid. Like this, I was playing for my home team. I was like a kid playing for Alabama or Auburn. And I felt as though that the career towards the end, it wasn't the career I thought I would have. And I stepped away.
Well, I really hate that happened for you. One thing I have to think in my head before we, like I said, before we bring the present, we have to kind of talk about the past. I like you always coming up with innovative ways to try to keep the community safe. One way in particular was East Lake community, how they was putting up the barriers and the barricades. And I guess now they have made a decision to permanently keep the barricades there. Is there any way, because it's almost like when you drive through East Lake, it's like you're going through a maze, and then I heard it was getting to a point where it was getting almost an obstacle for first responders to get through there because the barricades was down.
I can think of several calls that I had recently, specifically towards the end of last year, where I had a domestic call. And I can remember I was 2 blocks away and there was a woman running to the sidewalk on the corner of the sidewalk screaming for help. And that was the call details. And I can remember being 2 blocks away, but I couldn't get to her because of the barricades. And I had to go all the way around the Wahoma neighborhood and probably spent about 3 or 4 extra minutes because of the barricades. I do understand, where the original idea and the brains behind that may have came from. Hey, we're going to corner them in. There's only, so much access. However, it did become a nightmare for first responders. And I think anyone that patrols areas with barricades or responds to calls for service on the fire department will tell you that they do cause a lot of harm. However, you speak to some neighborhood residents and they love them because people can't just drive onto their streets the way that they used to be. And it almost like you have to have a reason for even going into East Lake and going into certain areas that have those barricades. But I think at that time period, Birmingham, we were in such a crisis that, the mayor's office did what they thought was necessary to protect their community. And I can't help but respect that. And I think the reason for the barricades are rooted in love and rooted in protection.
So was celebratory gunfire really down this year? Last, New Year coming in, or was it?
I don't think it's ever down in Birmingham. I really don't. And I think there's so much firepower on the streets. I don't think it's even to the Birmingham Police Department's fault or any law enforcement agency's fault. People just are so gun happy. And we live in a state where it doesn't take anything to have a gun. And there's always going to be guns. There's always going to be people that are willing to go out and shoot in the air. I'm starting to learn people I never thought would even participate in celebratory gunfire. I've overheard them tell me, they shot into the air. So it's not just a particular group. It's everybody. Wow. It's a horrible tradition.
Yeah, because what goes up got to come down eventually.
It's going to come down. And that next day after New Year's Eve is always horrible for our first responders. And so, much respect to them for the calls of service they have to answer the day after all those gunfire and gunshots go into the air.
Okay, well, let's transition to now. I want to get the pass so we can move now. When I brought you on, I think it was around probably like September, I think I brought you on the podcast. And we just talked about a variety of topics. And
we had some folks heated.
Yeah, we hit the first.
Jarvis, we had some folks heated. I'm talking about call me every name in the book.
Yeah, I did. I know, and my thing was more like we did the full interview, but then I decided to go in and clip it up. And you all can go on my page. You go on YouTube, Instagram, my TikTok. I had to get a whole new TikTok because I was posting so much because the reels from it. That the topic that just struck a nerve in people was whether or not to comply with the police.
And Jarvis, that bothered me to the point where I was so out of character. I am not a person that's going to sit there, and because I've been a public information officer for the past 5 years, I'm used to people talking about me publicly, and I respect the fact that people talk about you publicly, because it's an honor to have somebody talk about you, even if you call me, something bad or something, that's not, what I wanted to get out there. I'm okay with that, because I look at it like it's a blessing to have people talk about you. What bothered me is I came from my heart to give certain advice, because around that time you had a young man killed by the police in Homewood, Alabama. And I would never want anyone to experience the hurt and pain that that man's family has had to experience. And so here I was giving advice to the general public, whether I was a defense attorney, whether I was a police officer. At the very onset of my day, I am a father. I have life that depends on me. And I never want another parent to feel the way these people feel when they lose their child at the hands of the police. I don't care how tough people think they are, Jarvis. I don't care how tough I think I am. You are never going to win an argument on the side of the street with a law enforcement officer. I don't care who you are. You're never going to win. And then you talk about you're going to physically not comply with the police. I'd much rather you have a criminal defense case where the police unlawfully arrest you than you call Terrell and I because either you were permanently disabled, you were hurt, or God forbid, your family has to make a call to Terrell and I because you've lost your life during the interaction with a law enforcement officer.
Well,
it's about safety and going home at the end of the day, Jarvis. It's not about people's pride in their ego, which so many people made that post about.
Okay, well, let's go through a step by step for people who didn't look at the video before. If you don't, it's still on my YouTube. It's still on Facebook. I'm driving in my car.
Yes, sir.
Riding in my car. I see those flashing lights. I decided to get to a preface, a safe space to stop. Because maybe I didn't see you. Maybe it was raining. Maybe I was not focused on, but I see the flashing lights. I come to a stop. Officer walks up to my car. Should I ask them why are they stopping me? Or should I wait for them to tell me why they're stopping me?
I would allow the officer to be in control.
Okay.
And I do think that we're dealing with a group of law enforcement officers that professionalism is not at its highest in today's society. It's not. Professionalism is almost out the window with many of our officers, especially when you factor in that you have a younger generation of police officers that are going into that profession.
Okay.
Let that officer control that conversation. Major advice of rights that I would give anyone. You do not have to consent to any search of your vehicle. I'm a major lover of the Fourth Amendment. That's one of my favorite subjects in criminal law. It's your protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. You do not have to consent to the police when they ask you, can they search your car? The argument on our former post and what everybody flipped out about was when I said, if the police are telling you that they're going to search your car, let them search your car. The reason I said that is because if a police officer is telling you something that is not up for negotiation, there is no, well, do you mind if I do this? Or do you mind? Do what that police officer tells you. Because what's next is I've already asked them to do something. They haven't done what I asked them to do. Guess what that looks like to the court of law? Non-compliance. Guess what the second stage and step of a use of force is going to be? Okay, My presence has not made that person comply. My verbiage and my verbal commands have not worked. What am I going to do next? I'm going to progress to physical force. And no one wants that. And that is why if a police officer, deputy sheriff, state trooper is telling you something, meaning Jarvis, step out of the car, that is not the time to argue with them. That is not the time to negotiate. Because here's the beauty of law. Just because you comply with a law enforcement officer's commands does not mean you did so voluntarily in the court of law. You can still argue because one of the elements of consent is that consent has to be voluntary. Just because you do what a law enforcement officer tells you to do doesn't mean you voluntarily have done that. Prime example, if a police officer has their hand on their gun or is making a threatening movement and they tell you to do something and you do that, did you do that voluntarily? Or did you do that out of fear? And that's where we come in. That's where we, as criminal defense attorneys, can argue the caveats in the case law and the proven methods to show, hey, this was not a true consent. This was not voluntary. And that's why I tell people, survive the encounter. That's your number one obligation and responsibility with any interactions with the police officer is survive the encounter.
Well, one thing I always like to say too is, as long as you can keep it just you and that officer, if they call up another car, if they call another backup car in, whenever you see one police car, backup car, there's two, your chances to go in jail increases. And I just see.
That's right. Either they're going to try to take you to jail from something that they may have gotten lawfully, or they want that extra officer there because they want to search your car.
Yeah, like I've seen it's like, I always keep it that one car, everybody. Do you have to tell them when they pull you over, do you have to have a weapon? Do you have a gun in your car? Do you have to answer that? Or you can just let them find it?
I think it builds trust. I think it builds trust with an officer when you tell them and your hands are visible and you let them know, hey, officer, hey, ma'am, I have a weapon in the car. I'm not going to reach for it. I just want you to know because I want you to be safe. I think that builds trust. And you would hope that that law enforcement officer will put two and two together and say, you know what? This person told me that they have a gun. Your average law-abiding citizen is going to do that, or be willing to do that. And I think that kind of puts that officer at ease.
So you should put your hands I got my hands like this, above like the steering wheel that, like you said, is visible. It's raised up the whole time. That's the steering wheel.
Always put your hands where an officer can see them. If it's nighttime, do everything you can to turn as many lights on in that car. Illuminate the inside of that car as much as you can. That immediately is going to put that officer at ease.
Okay, so should I pull my phone out and start videotaping him? Or do you advise going Facebook Live? Do you advise your clients doing that?
I would never introduce any object that could be mistaken for a weapon. I know personally, I can say this personally. I hate to admit this, but I can say this personally. As a police officer, I responded to a call one time and it was a tense call and I knocked on the door and the person had a black remote in their hand.
Oh, wow.
And by the grace of God, I was a Birmingham police officer. And Birmingham police officers have a lot of restraint and constraint. But there was a split second where my mind wanted to tell me, like, that's a gun. And I paused. And by the grace of God, I didn't do anything. But it turned out to be a remote. But in my mind, you could not tell me that that was not a gun. And I say that to say, you don't want to have anything in your hands on a traffic stop that could be perceived as a weapon. My iPhone is in a black case. I don't want that phone anywhere near me. I don't want anything that can be misconstrued or misperceived as a weapon. And I would encourage anyone, just keep your hands where the officer can see them and don't do anything unless you let them know what you're going to do. It's only going to keep you safe, and it's only going to make them feel safer, and it's going to make that interaction go smooth, and you'll be on your way.
Okay. I'm trying to think of something else to talk about while we dealing with. I'm trying to think.
And don't argue on the side of the road. Don't argue on the side of the road. It's never going to get you anywhere. This is not just as a former police officer. This is from a former knucklehead who has argued with not as an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I was a super young police officer, and I got into a full-fledged argument with the Vestavia Hills police officer on 31. He falsely accused me of speeding. Like, there was no way around it. Like, right hand to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I was not speeding. He accused me of speeding, which set me off.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there arguing on the side of the road with him, and it got me nowhere.
Oh,
Thankfully, he turned out to be a pretty cool officer, and we were able to cool down, and he let me go. But I can say, even though I knew 100% I was not speeding, there was nothing that arguing with that officer was going to do anything for my potential speeding ticket.
Oh, wow.
If anything, it made it worse. I just happened to have a good officer at the end of the day that said, you know what? I'm just going to let this kid go.
So, I want to stay on the interaction part for a moment. Let's switch over to, I guess you deal with a lot, your firm, DUIs. You know, people driving under the influence.
Yes,
I
sir.
guess the number one thing I guess a lot of people ask, if they ask you to blow, should you blow?
Great question. Do you have to submit to chemical testing? No. However, there are penalties for not submitting to chemical testing. You're talking about automatic license suspensions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult argument to make to the state of Alabama to get your license when you've refused chemical testing. However, something that's advantageous by not submitting to chemical testing is you do not have science to worry about when you're arguing that DUI case. DUIs are unique, Jarvis, because they have three different components to that case. They have a police procedure component, which are your field sobriety testing, the decision to make the arrest, all these different factors. Number two is they have a legal component. DUI is an Alabama law. And then third, DUIs have a scientific component. Alcohol is a chemical substance, which means you're studying how the body processes alcohol. You're studying chemical testing and what does having a 0.08 mean legally and scientifically, and what are medical factors that go into that. And by not submitting to that chemical testing, you take out the scientific factor, which if a law enforcement officer has that chemical testing on you, believe it or not, it does not mean it's the end of the road, even if you are over a 0.08. However, it is very difficult to argue that you were not intoxicated when the city or the state can prove, well, hey, he registered a 0.09 on his chemical testing. They already have a one-up on you. So there's advantages and disadvantages for not submitting to the chemical testing or submitting to the chemical testing.
Now, I saw something. I don't know if it passed. I don't know. I guess it passed in the House or maybe going on to the state Senate. That they're, if you on your first DUI offense, they're putting that. What's that mechanism they put in your car that you got?
Interlock.
The interlock. Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I get it. I need to look at while I'm talking. Alabama law. Hold on.
And know this, Jarvis. with that license suspension, when somebody is ultimately convicted of DUI, there's an automatic license suspension. However, where interlock can be in the benefit, even though it's costly, is that person can elect to have an interlock device attached to their car. And instead of having their license suspended, they can just have that interlock device attached and they'll still be able to drive without their license being suspended. And many people may ask, well, the ones that know that in the state of Alabama, you cannot be arrested for driving with a suspended license, the question has come up, well, if I know I can't be arrested for driving with a suspended license, why not just take that chance of driving? And I would tell people this, although you cannot be arrested for driving with a suspended license like you can in our neighboring states such as Georgia. You go to jail if you drive without a license in Georgia. Like you're handcuffed, booked in a jail. Officers can still tow your car if you are driving with a suspended license due to a DUI conviction. They can tell you to step out of the car and that car is theirs. And they're going to tow your car to their impound lot. So there are serious consequences of driving with the suspended license after a DUI conviction.
Oh, wow. And I'm actually Googling, I was looking it up and it said Alabama law requires, and like this was passed back in 2020.
Sure was.
First time offenders with a high BAC, I guess blood alcohol level, will face a mandatory 1 year ID, whatever term, right? Others may elect to a 90-day term. Mandatory use installation. You have to pay for the installation.
I told you it's costly. It's costly. Now there is a cap, if I'm not mistaken. I think the state law has put a cap, meaning like somebody can't charge you, a ridiculous amount. However, that's still money out of your pocket that you've already paid outside of the ridiculous amount that you've paid for the DUI.
And then even on top of that, your insurance goes up because now the insurance companies can use that against you when you try to get auto insurance. It's just like, I'll never forget. I tell anybody, go in the liquor store, you'll see different prices of different liquors. And I always tell people that don't matter what it is, if you get caught with DUI, it'll cost you over $10,000. So no matter what, you get the good.
No matter what you get.
Yeah.
No matter what you get. And I like to preach to my clients, DUIs are one of the only charges where a plea deal, certain plea deals are still a victory.
Okay.
The client may not see that, but if you get accepted into a pretrial diversion program, which is a court referred program that allows you to have your DUI dismissed as long as you complete several steps, classes, paying fees, drug testing, you get that DUI dismissed because your ultimate goal in any DUI case is to not have that DUI hit your record. Because if it hits your record, the amount of money that you pay in insurance increases is going to be a fraction of what you would what you would have paid to get that pretrial diversion is going to be a fraction of that increase.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And you lose employment opportunities because there's employers that you either have to drive their company car or they look at you as a liability when they see, okay, this person doesn't have a valid driver's license.
And okay, well, I want to pivot. We're still staying on the DUIs. How is marijuana usage? If you're under the influence of marijuana, can that kind of flow the same way as? I guess one of you know where I'm getting at.
Of course, there's Alabama's DUI statute is unique, and there's various ways that a person can be charged with a DUI. If you ask anybody to close their eyes and think about the first word that comes to mind when you hear DUI, I guarantee you the first substance they're going to think about is alcohol. However, any substance that can cause you to be in a physical condition where you are not safe to operate a car can cause you to get a DUI. If an officer thinks that you are under the influence of marijuana to the point that has impaired your judgment and has caused you to not be able to safely operate that car, you can be charged with a DUI. And there are certain statutes that apply to substances, and either substances plus alcohol or substances by themselves. And those substances don't always have to be illegal substances. You can have prescription pills that a medical doctor has prescribed you that Jarvis, you shouldn't be operating that car under the influence of this and driving. And you can be charged with the DUI the same way as if you went out to the bar and had a couple of drinks.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I think that kind of covered the bases on that. So let's move on to criminal defense. That's another thing that you provide for clients. I guess it's a weird, interesting now, because before you was a police officer. Maybe like one of the biggest criticisms we got from the last video was like, how can this guy lock me up and turn around and defend me at the same way? Which side was he on?
I was on the side of somebody who is absolutely in love with law. And how dare those people accuse me of not being for the cause of being a criminal defense attorney because I was a police officer, as if I'm going to sacrifice the only thing I have in this profession, which is my name, to get what? And that's why nowadays people just talk and run their mouth, but they don't even think about what they say. In the practice of law, you only have two things. You have your name and your work product. I am not concerned if I'm a police officer. If I'm practicing as a criminal defense attorney, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be the best criminal defense attorney. I am not concerned with being a police officer because my entire livelihood depends on my client trusting me and my results. And now that I'm a 100% practicing criminal defense attorney and a 100% practicing personal injury attorney, I have seen the difference of separating myself from the police department. I have seen the difference that has made with clients and potential clients. Do I like that from a business standpoint? Of course. Mentally and morally, it kind of offends me because I'm the same person that I was even when I was a police officer. Because my passion was always there for criminal defense. Why would I have even went to law school and started practicing as a criminal defense attorney if I wasn't going to give my all? When I can go right down to the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office and be a prosecutor and not have to chase after clients to try to pay me. And the state of Alabama would automatically deposit a paycheck into my account every 2 weeks. But I chose to practice criminal defense because it's something I love. I chose to practice criminal defense because I know that 70% of all criminal defense clients can't afford to pay for that criminal defense attorney. But still, I put myself out there for that because I love that. And that's what I love to do today. And I have a personal experience. I have a personal experience with policing that helps me with criminal defense. Just like on the personal injury side, I'm a personal injury plaintiff. I have lifelong, permanent scarring and disfigurement. And that helps me be a better personal injury attorney because I've actually lived that life.
So I'm gonna stay on criminal defense for a moment. So, okay, I like walk through another scenario. Me and another individual get into a very intense argument. And as a result of this intense argument, the other person is deceased. What is the first major mistake people make when encountering police when there's been a domestic altercation like that and there's a fatality?
I would say in any situation involving the police, the number one mistake that I see made is that you give a statement. And I actually put a video out on this. And the theme of the video is You are not being defiant by being silent. You aren't being defiant by being silent. You are not showing guilt. You are not mitigating your defense because you chose not to give a statement. I don't think people realize how traumatic the incident is on their mental health and mental stability when you've just ultimately had to defend yourself. God forbid you've caused someone to lose their life. You are not in a position to advocate for yourself during that moment. And you have people that will, hours after they've been in a shooting or hours after they have had to defend themselves, and they're sitting with these trained law enforcement officers who take classes and who are at their peak energy wise, who are at their peak mental health wise, possibly. You are under stress and trauma. Do you think that they're going to factor that into their questioning? No, they are going to get to the bottom of their investigation no matter how they have to do that. They are not taking in consideration your stress. They're not going to take in consideration that you've experienced trauma. They are there to complete their mission, which is to either take you to jail or find out who they need to be going after to take them to jail.
So when I call, if scenario, if I get in an altercation with someone and they're deceased, I'm calling 911. Should I call 911 and say, hey, I shot somebody?
First things first, your number one response should be getting that person aid. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I shot someone, or hey, this is what happened. A person's been shot, because you're alerting that dispatcher, hey, medical personnel needs to arrive to treat a gunshot victim. The issue comes with leave it alone. Leave it alone. The 911 dispatcher is not the jury. The 911 dispatcher is not the judge. You don't have to go into the entire arguments of your case to that 911 dispatcher. Now, if she or he asks you a question like, hey, a person shot, were you the person that shot the person? And you say yes, I think that's where it ends. Because there is a benefit of letting that dispatcher know that you were the person, because that dispatcher may walk you in to a way to safely, if you're going to remain on the scene, to safely turn yourself in. I've heard dispatchers say, well, okay, I understand you're the shooter. Here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to touch your weapon. I don't want you to be anywhere near your weapon when my officers arrive on the scene. In fact, put your weapon in a car or put your weapon here. That's where a dispatcher can be of benefit. Aside from that, don't argue your case with that dispatcher. There's nothing that dispatcher can do to help you other than to get aid and record that you sought out aid for the person that's been ultimately injured in that situation.
Should you leave
only if you don't feel safe?
Okay.
Only if you don't feel safe. However, if you do leave, I encourage anyone to go to a public place or either a nearby public service building, whether it be a fire station, police department, and turn yourself in.
Okay.
Because if I'm just speaking as a citizen, I'm not speaking as an attorney, I'm not speaking as a former police officer. If someone runs away, but later they're claiming self-defense, do they still have an argument? Of course they do, because they could have left for many reasons. However, you are providing fuel to that district attorney's office when that case progresses. Because I guarantee you the first fact that district attorney's office is going to point out is, well, Jarvis left the scene. Jarvis didn't turn himself in. Jarvis didn't even call police. Jarvis had to have his door kicked in. Is that normal behavior from somebody that is defending themselves? Which, who's to say what normal behavior is? However, you're just providing them fuel to use against you.
So in Alabama, what classifies as self-defense? Like, for example, let's get straight to it. Shooting somebody in the back, is that self-defense?
Could be. It depends.
Okay.
And what you'll see is that naturally, us as human beings, we don't want to accept the fact that someone shot in the back. We don't. However, there's so many different factors that come into play when people are involved in a physical altercation, when people are involved in a mutual shooting and shootout with each other. There's so many different factors. So just because someone shot in the back doesn't mean automatically that that is not self-defense.
Okay.
The number one word that I would use in any self-defense scenario is reasonableness.
Okay.
Reasonableness. And that word reasonableness is going to come up a lot. Was it reasonable for Jarvis to perceive this person as a threat? Was it reasonable for him to be in fear of his safety or someone else's safety? Did he take a reasonable action against the person? Was it reasonable for him to take the physical action that he did? Was it reasonable for him to punch the guy? Was it reasonable for him to get an object and strike the guy? Sadly, was it reasonable for Jarvis to use his gun to shoot the guy? Reasonableness is going to come up a lot. And most of the time when you see self-defenses fail in trial, it's because the person's actions were not reasonable. You cannot pull a gun out and shoot someone if nothing that you've provided to the jury has given them that impression that you were in fear for your life. You've given them no facts. Did you see the person with the weapon? No. Did you think the person had a weapon? No. Did the person tell you they had a weapon? No. Did the person reach for something that could have been perceived for a weapon? No. Well, why'd you shoot the person? And Jarvis, the sad thing is, these are actual cases that happen in Alabama, that happen in our city, in Birmingham.
So if you shoot into I guess that what they define occupied dwelling, a car, a building, like say if somebody's coming to my car to attack me, can I shoot from my car, my gun, at them if I'm sitting in my car?
If you feel that your life is in danger, or you feel that the life of another is in danger, you can take reasonable steps to protect yourself. However, the finder of fact, the jury or the judge, is always going to question what facts were present to make Jarvis be in fear of his safety or in fear of someone else's safety.
Okay. Well, I want to get into personal injury. That's
yes,
something
sir.
that you and your team specialize in. What makes your firm different from these firms I see on TV all the time that say, hey, in a car accident, in a wreck, give us a call?
I appreciate you asking that question, Jarvis. What separates us is you get that mom and pop love. Okay. Most of your mega firms that you see on TV or that you see prevalent in the communities, one of the knocks that they get is that they don't provide that one-on-one attention. And many clients are left feeling like they were on an assembly line. With Terrell and I, in our personal injury practice, there's only two of us. Either you can call Terrell or either you can call Truman. And you get that one-on-one attention from us. The insurance companies already treat you as a number.
Okay.
your attorneys have to be there to treat you like you're one of theirs. And that's what we do. We treat you like you're ours. Because without you, we're nothing. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have careers. And I think it's just getting that humility across to the client that we're just as thankful for you as you are to us. And I can say, as a former personal injury plaintiff, I know firsthand what my clients are experiencing psychologically and emotionally with putting their entire case in the hands and the trust of someone else. I've been there before. I know what it's like to be recovering from a personal injury. And although your health might not be the best, one of the most positive outlooks that you have is that I may have a bit of money coming my way. And even if it can't change my life forever, I guarantee it can at least change something in my life. And just having that experience as a personal injury plaintiff helps me be a better personal injury attorney, because I look at it like, hey, I want my clients to have the same results that I got as a plaintiff. I had a personal injury claim. My attorney did what they were supposed to do, got my car fixed, got me a settlement. I want to be there for my client. And I would say what strengthens our name in the personal injury field is that Terrell and I have a background in being courtroom attorneys.
Okay.
Personal injury is known for being an area of law that is all about settlements and all about the demand letter. And what happens is a lot of your personal injury attorneys are submitting demand letters and they're trying to handle cases and settle them as quickly as possible, because that's a quick change, quick income, and they can move on to the next one. And next thing you know, they have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they're not giving that one-on-one attention. And one of the main reasons that I've seen that is because they don't want to go to trial.
Okay.
I love a good jury trial. Jarvis, I love jury trial. I love a jury trial more than anything in this world in the practice of law. And that is what separates Terrell and I from the rest, is we don't mind having the patience if you don't get the settlement offer that you feel you deserve or that we feel you deserve. I don't mind going to a jury trial. I love a good jury trial. And we're not afraid to take your case to a jury trial.
What's up with all these? I've been seeing commercial lately targeting if you've been injured in an Uber or a Lyft or a ride share accident. What's that? Is that a new wave in personal injury because everybody's using it now or something?
It's just another niche in personal injury. And that's the beauty of law, is that it's always evolving, it's always changing, and you're always going to see certain individualized types of cases as we change and we adapt as a society. Law isn't going anywhere. And if anything, it's growing in the criminal defense area and personal injury area. It's only growing because as a society, we're experiencing different areas of our lives, different technology. There's so many different avenues that could arise that could either cause an injury, cause harm, or sadly, there's going to be more crimes added to the books that add arrest.
So what are some things you would tell people to protect themselves? Because like you said, a lot of times a personal injury case is car accidents. I know one thing I think is like on your insurance, if you add like uninsured drivers protection, that way if you get in the accident, that way you still covered. If that person does not have insurance and hit your vehicle or cause bodily harm to yourself.
Or one factor that comes in is, okay, Jarvis has insurance. But guess what? Jarvis only, and I'm going to give a generous number, Jarvis only has a $100,000 policy limit. However, Johnny has over $100,000 worth of damages or worth of injuries. In the way that the insurance company is going to look at that is, hey, we're only on the hook for $100,000 because that's the policy limits. And of course, there's other ways you can umbrella those policies. However, if Jarvis only has $100,000 worth of coverage, what do you think that insurance company is going to say? Hey, well, we're only insuring Jarvis up to $100,000. And that's where the underinsured, and that's where those other forms of insurance come into play. And one thing that I also like to stress to personal injury plaintiffs is that one word that always has to come into play in the elements of a personal injury case is damages. Injuries, whether they be economic or non-economic. I get into a car accident. I stub my pinky toe. That's the only injury that I faced.
Yeah.
I can't go to Attorney Jarvis Escott and say, Attorney Escott, I was in a car accident. I stubbed my pinky toe. I want $100,000.
Yeah.
I can't get mad at Attorney Escott if he says, you know what, Truman, here's what I did. I got your car replaced, and that pinky toe that you injured, I've got all your medical expenses paid for, and here's $5,000 for your pain and suffering. Or here's $2,500 for your pain and suffering. Well, I don't want $2,500. I want $100. You only stubbed your pinky toe. You don't want these major settlements in personal injury cases. You don't want these millions of dollars in personal injury claims. You don't want that in the long run. And I tell people that because if an insurance company is willing to settle your case for hundreds of thousands of dollars, or if a jury gives you a verdict for hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions, you are in a physical state that I guarantee you would probably pay that amount that you got and more to be back to how you were health-wise. I went through my own personal injury. I was paid for that. I think my attorney did a decent job. I think I was paid pretty good amount. I would trade that money for everything to have not suffered from that personal injury. I have permanent disfigurement and scarring on my arm that mentally and emotionally I will never get over. It still, after almost 2 decades, it still crushes my confidence. When I have a short sleeve shirt on and my arm is exposed, it crushes my confidence. You can't pay any amount of money in the world to get back whole. So we are going to do the absolute best that we can to get you as much money as we can on the personal injury side, but we've got to be able to prove those damages to the insurance companies and to a jury if that case goes to a jury trial.
Okay, before we end, I got a couple questions. Somebody on Facebook said, do you take federal government cases for personal injuries, and do you take compensation case?
Let's talk about workers' compensation case, the side of that question, because that's an excellent question to that viewer.
Okay.
Alabama has a law. Terrell and I get tons of questions about this. I was injured on the job. Do I have a personal injury claim against my employer? Alabama has a law on the books that if you are injured on the job, guess what kind of case that is, Jarvis?
Workers' comp.
It's a workers' comp case.
Okay.
It's a workers' comp case. Exclusivity. It's a workers' comp case. Here's what's interesting about those workers' comp cases. There are accidents that may not be an accident to you and I, but the way the law is written, it's still considered an accident on the job. Many acts of violence that are experienced from workers on the job. We look at that, well, the employer should have protected them for that. Workers' comp law can view that as an accident, which gives the workers' comp code exclusivity of getting that person justice. Cannot touch that as a personal injury case.
Oh, wow. Well, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way of reaching out to you? What's the phone number and the website?
Please call us 205-360-0800. An easy way to remember that is 205-360-0800. Our website is www.thelawlifestyle.com. www.thelawlifestyle.com. Why? Because the law office of Truman Fitzgerald is where law is not a business, law is a lifestyle.
Well, Truman, I want to thank you for coming on again, brother. Congratulations on taking that faith walk.
Thank you.
I think you're going to do very well. I think that especially like in criminal defense, I think you're going to do very, very well. And this is not going to be the last. I promise you all. You're going to see him. I think this guy, he didn't have all the years of being in front of TV for nothing. So I think he's going to continue to be on different screens one way or another. So
thank you, Jarvis.
So I don't think this is the last, because he's been on TV in other ways now that he's an attorney. So I think he definitely has got, the future's bright for you, brother.
Thank you for everything, Jarvis. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you, brother.
The same way. And thank you all for watching. Please check out what'shappenedbirmingham.com for more interviews. Subscribe to the YouTube page, TikTok, What's Happening Birmingham, audio version, Apple Podcasts. Thank you all again. Have a great day. And if you're in trouble, hit this man up. Bye-bye.
Thank y'all. I love you. Arrested or injured, give me a call.
Yes.
Trust Truman. Trust Truman.
And if you don't talk, he'll make sure you walk.
If you don't talk, Terrell and I will make sure you walk.
Yeah.
I love y'all.
All right.
Thank you for watching the What's Happening Birmingham video podcast. Please check out our website, app, or subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest videos today.